outside the City Hall in Cape Town. For Cape Townians, the City Hall is an important venue. This is where Nelson Mandela delivered his first speech as a free man in February 1990, where after months where people knew he had been moved from Robben Island, he was at Victor Verster in prison at Paarl, but they were not sure when he would come out. Outside on the balcony, behind where I'm standing right here, government erected a statue to commemorate that moment where Nelson Mandela first addressed this country as a free man, signaling a moment that could never be turned back, a change that could never be held back anymore for South Africa's democracy. And it's that moment that is one of the deciding factors why the presiding officers of Parliament decided on the City Hall of Cape Town for this year's venue for the State of the Nation address, following the fire that gutted the chambers of both the National Assembly and the Old Assembly chamber in Parliament. It's been a difficult week for Parliament this week, where first the fire completely gutted the Old Assembly chamber. There were hopes for the National Assembly chamber, but also that was completely gutted. Then yesterday, the engineers said, cordon off the whole space. It is unsafe. Nobody can go into it. A bit of good news that the presiding officers could take from the fire that gutted Parliament was that the mace could be saved. The mace represents, it's that black and silver rod, black, silver and gold rod that is brought, that the Sergeant at Arms brings into the National Assembly to signal when Parliament is in session. Mm-hmm. There were concerns when the fire was going on at Parliament if it could be saved. That has been saved. The Secretary to the National Assembly confirmed that it has been saved. That was a big relief for the Speaker of the National Assembly. So that will now be brought to the City Hall right here. Mm-hmm. There are a number of considerations that have had to go into that, because the venue of Parliament in Cape Town is in the Constitution. It's in our legislation, where Parliament is what a sitting of the legislature is. So those are the things that the presiding officers of Parliament have had to work through. But between now and the 10th of February, when the State of the Nation address, preparations will be going through. We had a conversation earlier with J.P. Smith, who is the City of Cape Town's Councillor for Safety and Security, about this venue, because there are political concerns about the City Hall, because some believe the fire at Parliament was not accidental. What made it worse was the fire at the offices of the Department of Justice yesterday, which is just a block away from Parliament. So there have been those questions, there have been concerns about safety of the venues for the State of the Nation address. When I spoke to J.P. Smith earlier, he said it's still early days. They're going to sit together and work through a safety plan. But for now, the City Hall of Cape Town is the venue where the State of the Nation address will be delivered.
And Asanda, very briefly, so the venue for SONA, right, is one hurdle crossed, but Parliament also needs to look at other long-term logistical arrangements, because there's the work of committees and the other day-to-day activities of Parliament that still need to continue uninterrupted.
Well, at this stage, what we know is that committee rooms that are linked to the National Council of Provinces, the Old Assembly Chamber, and the National Assembly Chambers are gutted. But Parliament has committee rooms that are in the Mox building, another building, 90 Plain, and also committee rooms that are at Good Hope. So there are several buildings within the parliamentary precinct that were not affected by the fire. When we spoke to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, last time, she said they were looking at those venues. So there is the fact that There are venues and buildings that were not touched by the fire. But also, in the past 2 years, due to COVID, Parliament had adjusted to holding meetings virtually. So one, committees are continuing with virtual meetings. Two, where there has to be an in-meeting person, where they really have to come to Parliament. For those, there are buildings and there are committee rooms at Mox Building, at 90 Plain, at 120 Plain, at Good Hope Chamber, where meetings of Parliament can continue. One of the strongest things that the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Amos Masonde, have been determined about is to say that the work of Parliament will continue. They do recognize that the fires are not accidental. There's something else going on beyond the fires, but they're determined to continue with the work of Parliament. They keep saying this every time we speak to them, that the work of Parliament will continue. There are venues. The City of Cape Town has also offered its own venues for them to use. So Tambi, coming to your question, Parliament is determined to continue with its business regardless of what continues to happen. It's the fires, it's destruction, whether some parts of the buildings are not safe. They are determined to continue with the work of Parliament in the year 2022.
Asanda Mbetshe, our reporter just outside the City Hall in Cape Town, the venue for this year's State of the Nation address by President Cyril Ramaphosa.